Hi, I'm Alan Berube from the Metropolitan Policy Program at Brookings. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about a new report we produced jointly with the London School of Economics entitled Global MetroMonitor, The Path to Economic Recovery. And this report grows out of Brookings' ongoing work tracking the performance of U.S. metro economies in recession and recovery. With this new report, we're taking that U.S.-based work worldwide. So my presentation focuses on three main findings of our report. First, the global economy is led by its major metropolitan economies. These metros are the most productive economic centers in their respective nations, and they account for an astonishing share of total global economic output. Second, the Great Recession has accelerated a shift in economic growth. In the past year, 29 out of the 30 best-performing metro economies worldwide were located outside the United States and Europe, most in emerging nations of Asia and Latin America. And third, both macro policies and metro characteristics have shaped recent metro performance. Actions at both levels will be needed to achieve a widespread and sustainable economic recovery. So let's begin with our first point, that the global economy is led by its major metropolitan economies. As the United Nations has reported, world population is becoming increasingly metropolitan. In 2008, for the first time, more than half of all people on the planet live in urban areas. That's up from only 30% in 1950 and well on its way to reaching 60% by 2030. Increasingly, metropolitan areas are how the global economy is organized, here and abroad. The cities of Chicago and Buenos Aires are recognized worldwide as global cities. Economically, however, each forms just part of a broader metropolis that wraps in surrounding suburbs and even rural areas and generates tremendous economic output. The Global MetroMonitor report profiles the recent economic performance of these and 148 other of the world's largest metropolitan economies. 50 are located in the United States, 50 in Europe, and 50 in other regions of the world. These metro areas all combine related firms, skilled workers, and critical infrastructure, which together enhance productivity. As a result, metros are wealthier than their nations, especially in emerging market areas like Eastern Europe and China. Metro areas are high-value economies, not just for their nations, but worldwide. The 150 metro areas in this report contain just 12% of world population, but generate nearly half of world economic output. For all their aggregate economic strength, these metros are highly diverse demographically and economically. Their populations range from 500,000 in Ljubljana, Slovenia, to roughly 35 million in Greater Tokyo. Their incomes reflect varying stages of development, from under $1,000 per capita annually in Kolkata, India, to over $70,000 per capita annually in Zurich, Switzerland. And the metros vary greatly on what they do, from centers of business and financial services to global manufacturing hubs to national capitals with a substantial government presence. And this leads to our second major finding, which is that the Great Recession has accelerated a shift in the growth map toward emerging market metro economies. We see this shift evolving across three distinct periods analyzed in the report. A baseline period predating the Great Recession, when global economic growth averaged over 3% annually. The recession, when worldwide output fell significantly. And the first year of the recovery, when growth rebounded sharply. We examined two key measures for each metro in each period: employment growth, which indicates the trend in labor market opportunity, and growth in output per capita, or income, which indicates the change in the average standard of living enjoyed by an area's residents. We use metros' combined growth in these measures to rank all 150 in the three periods. For example, in Brazil, Sao Paulo's combined performance on these measures in the pre-recession period ranked at 70th out of the 150 metro areas, similar to Guadalajara and Dallas. Rio de Janeiro experienced slower employment growth and ranked at number 100 between Indianapolis and Copenhagen. So the next series of slides shows how metros on three continents, North America, Europe, and Asia, performed before, during, and after the Great Recession. In North America, metro performance before the recession was mixed. Stronger performers in the green tended to be in the Sun Belt, and weaker performers in red in the manufacturing belt of the Midwest and Northeast. Las Vegas was one of the highest-ranking metros worldwide. In the recession period, however, much of the Sun Belt went south. Las Vegas and other metros tumbled on account of the housing market crash, while Charlotte suffered from fallout in the banking sector. The United States accounted for 30 of the 50 weakest performing metro areas worldwide during the recession. In the past year, U.S. metros achieved a relative rebound. Like Charlotte, most did so without adding very many jobs, but by posting strong income growth, owing to productivity increases. Las Vegas and some other Sunbelt metros, however, have declined even further in the recovery, so let's take a closer look at Las Vegas. Its employment doubled over 15 years, but per capita income grew more modestly. But Vegas built the most consumption-dependent economy in the United States along the way, as measured by the share of its jobs in the hospitality, retail, construction, and real estate sectors, all of which suffered from the pullback in consumer spending. Rapid housing development also fed an asset bubble in the region that, when it began to pop in 2007, brought steep job declines and widespread home foreclosures that today hold back economic recovery. Turning to Europe, the continent, like North America, had a mix of high and low performers before the recession. While Central Europe grew quite slowly, other areas grew strongly. Eastern European metros benefited from integration into the market economy, while Dublin and Spanish metros benefited from new levels of public and private investment. As in the U.S., however, the Great Recession battered many of Europe's top-performing metros, particularly those in Spain, Ireland, and Baltic nations that had developed significant housing bubbles in the run-up to recession. Other EU metros, such as Warsaw, were less severely affected. As 2010 got underway, the debt crisis spread across the Eurozone and slowed the pace of recovery. More than 30 of the bottom 50 metro performers in the last year were European, as most continued to lose employment and in some cases income as well. Warsaw was one of a handful of European metros, most of them in the east, to actually post above-average growth in all three periods. Per capita incomes more than doubled in the lead-up to the recession, while employment grew only modestly. Along the way, the region benefited from rapid new foreign investment in industries like information technology. Its labor market remained healthy thanks to the emigration of less educated workers to other growing EU economies. And the nation as a whole weathered the recession better due to conservative lending standards adopted by Poland's central bank before the crisis hit. In Asia, for its part, registered several of the strongest metro performers worldwide in the lead-up to recession, especially those in China and India. But the region was also home to Japanese metros suffering from the lost decade, as well as Bangkok and Jakarta, which battled financial crisis in the late 1990s. Unlike in the United States and Europe, however, the story of the global downturn in Asia was stable or improving performance in nearly all metros. The 5 Chinese metros in our study occupy the top 5 spots in the recession rankings. Strong performance in Asia continued through the recovery period as metros in Japan, Singapore, and elsewhere made further gains. The one exception was Dubai, the region's Dublin, and ranked alongside the Irish capital at number 149 of 150, reeling from the effects of a real estate crash. Shenzhen, China, was a consistently strong performer across all 3 periods. From 1993 to 2010, its per capita income more than tripled, and employment quadrupled, with no significant slowdown during the recession. As recently as 1980, Shenzhen was a fishing village of just 20,000 people, but its designation as China's inaugural special economic zone that year led to the growth of a robust manufacturing-led economy and one of the world's largest container ports to fuel its exports. And even as exports declined during the recession, Shenzhen was buoyed by its increasing presence in higher-value industries like telecommunications, exemplified by firms like Huawei and ZTE. To summarize, then, the recession led to an increase in the growth edge enjoyed by emerging Asian and Latin American metros. In the recession period, the average rank of emerging metros outside the United States and Europe improved to 33, while the average ranks for Eastern European and U.S. metros took a tumble. In the first year of recovery, the emerging metros improved even further to an average rank of 22 out of 150. U.S. metros rebounded a bit, but Western European metros dropped dramatically in the rankings. So these trends pointed to our final finding, which is that both macro and metro factors have mattered for economic performance and will continue to matter as the recovery proceeds. First, for all their global economic importance, metro areas don't stand apart from their national context. The typical metro grew at rates very similar to its nation throughout the 3 periods. Overall, national growth rates explain between half and 3/4 of metro growth rates, reflecting how national monetary, fiscal, and trade policies set the platform for metro performance. But national aggregates can't fully account for what are sometimes significant performance differences between metros within the same nation, such as Munich and Stuttgart during the recession period, or St. Louis and Kansas City during the recovery. We find that some of these differences reflect what metros do or what they did in the lead up to recession. Metros with significant employment and construction, a reflection of growth in the real estate bubble, did better than others in the pre-recession period, as did manufacturing metros in emerging Asian, Latin American, and Middle Eastern markets. Centers of non-market services, mostly government, did not keep pace. In the recession and recovery periods, however, the tables turned. Government-focused economies, especially in US and Europe, did better in the recession thanks to greater stability in that sector. And in the recovery, financial and business services centers rebounded strongly. But today, construction-influenced metros like Las Vegas, Madrid, and Dubai have the most difficult road to recovery. These dynamics mean that the road to full recovery is not the same length in every region. For one group of metros, mostly emerging market economies in Asia and Latin America, there essentially was no Great Recession. A second group of metros, most of them in the United States, lost employment and income in the recession, but turned the corner back toward recovery in both measures in the past year. A third group, which accounts for most U.S. and European metros, as well as a few in Asia and Australia, are growing now in either income or employment, but not both. And for a final group of metros, most of them in Europe, the recession persists as they continue to lose both employment and income in 2010. Achieving a sustainable economic recovery in both established and emerging market metro areas will require focus at both the macro and metro scales. Macroeconomic policies that help rebalance global demand will provide metros with a necessary platform for stable and productive growth. Both national and regional actors must also commit to investing for the long run in the fundamental assets, innovative institutions, critical infrastructure, a skilled workforce, that drive economic growth and concentrate overwhelmingly in metro areas. And metro actors themselves, especially in established regions, must identify and capitalize on opportunities to better connect with their international counterparts to forge new and productive market opportunities. The Great Recession marked an important inflection point for the global economy. Policies to drive a new round of more sustainable economic growth must recognize and respond to the metropolitan sources of that growth. And that's why we subtitled the Global MetroMonitor The Path to Economic Recovery, because ultimately, that path runs through the world's leading metropolitan economies.